Hello there, Ray here, and today guys, we have a brand new combat update, and this is the 5th version of the combat update, and this is just in the snapshot stages, but it is completely different from like the 1.16 or 1.15 snapshot. And if we pull up the F3, you can see at the very top it says Minecraft Combat Test 5, 1.15 Combat 6 vanilla pending. And the whole idea with this snapshot is to try to figure out the best way to overcome the barrier which is in Minecraft to do with people still playing in version like 1.8 and using that combat system for like PvP rather than using the newer system which is known as like the 1.9 combat changes. So we're here in our testing world to test out the newest changes. These will eventually be implemented into the main game of Minecraft, so pay attention and make sure to give your feedback on these changes because they will come into the game with or without your input. And if you guys are new to this whole combat thing, I put links in the description to all the previous videos where I cover all the other changes about it. So today I'm just going to cover the newest changes. So in this combat snapshot, Jeb has tried to go after two main issues. And the first one is that armor is too weak and it kind of barely matters, in particular low quality armor. So if you guys don't know, when it comes to armor, something like the turtle helmet, which gives 2 armor, is the exact same as a chainmail helmet, which gives 2 armor, which is the same as the iron helmet, which gives 2 armor, which is the same as gold helmet, which also gives 2 armor. So yeah, you can kind of see how they're all the same and they're also very weak. The next thing they try to combat is the food regen. So with 1.9 food regeneration, it encourages more of a defensive and evasive gameplay, as the player can kind of just move away from their enemy and then just eat some food, and this will give them that regeneration effect. This is actually very useful not for combat, for actually doing AFK sessions, because then you can always re-heal your player in circumstances where regeneration beacons are not good enough. And it goes on to say that the first problem with the armor being too weak makes fights too quick, where the second problem with the food can make the fight really drag on and also be quite boring. And this is why we might see different events in Minecraft like the UHC where they actually restrict normal heart regeneration, which does make the combat more exciting. So he said the overall changes to a snapshot is that weapons are now overall weaker, and he went ahead and removed the regeneration boost that they get from food saturation. So let's look into these with more detail. Here we got the weapons here. They're not ordered in weakest to strongest like you might think they would be. We got the wooden sword here. So currently these 2 swords are now the same. The stone one got reduced down to the same as wood. Next up is the iron one, which has 1 more attack damage over these. And this one was also reduced. The diamond sword was actually reduced by 2 with only attack damage of 6. And the trident was also lowered down by 1. Now there's also kind of a base attack damage depending on the actual type of weapon. So something like a sword used to have a base of 3, now he lowered it down to 2. So overall swords are weaker, but axes they even lowered more. But axes had kind of a base damage of 4 and they lowered it down to 3. Kind of gives a cool insight on how the game developers actually come up with damaging systems and stuff like that, how they have kind of a base for certain types of weapons and then they add extra attack damage onto them depending on what tier they are. I think this is a good change overall just because even though I don't do much PvP, I do really notice that weapons are very strong. And this change shouldn't really overall affect farms and other stuff like that, as most of the time you get the mob that you're trying to kill quite low before actually killing it. So the damage you can do with the sweeping attack is probably more important than just the normal attack. But overall, the biggest change to this combat snapshot is the food regeneration being removed. So let's go ahead and give that a test. We got some food here and I'll lower down my hunger. So one of the things they did is they allow you to get regeneration from your hunger bars. So notice how my hunger bars on the right hand side are being removed, but I'm gaining hearts on the left hand side. And this used to only work for the first 2 haunches or chicken legs that you've seen on the hunger bar there. But now they actually changed it so it will actually work quite a bit longer. And it'll actually work all the way down to the final 3 hunger bars. So notice I was actually able to get regeneration from all those hunger bars except for the last 3. So now I'm not taking any more natural generation. But what they did remove is when you like eat food and you get some like really fast regeneration, you see that is no longer occurring. It's a slow regeneration. Now, the fast regeneration I noticed was kind of a really bad thing for PvP, but it was a really good thing, like I said, for farms and stuff. Because a lot of times with farms, you're AFKing and you don't want your player to die, so you just have your player like holding down food and eating it, and this will allow you to quickly regenerate. But now it's more of a slow regeneration, so you have to be kind of careful where you use this in case you're going to take a lot of damage. You won't be able to heal it as fast anymore. But you're still able to use food to regenerate, so we still might be able to make farms where you're able to eat and then you slowly regenerate. Maybe you're going to have more armor on your character just to kind of remove any damage that you're taking. But this is actually a really big change for PvP, as a lot of times, you go around and you fight something, then you kind of back off and you just eat a piece of food very quickly and then go on into fighting them again as your player is automatically regenerating. And you don't even really need to use the regeneration potions unless you're doing some really all-out fighting. Now, one of the things they did change with these food changes is they also made eating food slower. So it used to take 32 game ticks to eat one piece of food, and now they bumped it up to 40. They also changed the amount of naturally healing that occurs from the food. So if you eat, instead of it healing you every 4 seconds, now it's every 3 seconds. So it's actually a little bit faster of that naturally healing, but you don't have any regen effect or anything like that. Now the next change that they did is something that most people don't really see, which is that naturally healing now always drains food points. We're kind of seeing that right now, how every time you eat, it is draining food points every time it heals, but there's more to it. Saturation is not used when healing damage and is only relevant as a pause until the food drains, as originally intended, they say. So that means it don't matter how much saturation you have, which is a bar that you can't see on your hotbar, you will always use up hunger for every time you heal. Before, you used to be able to kind of have this extra saturation would kind of hold you off for a while, and that would allow you to heal quite a bit before actually taking any hunger. And that's why people would eat stuff like golden carrots, because it would give more saturation, even though it gave less hunger. Now with this changed, it'll probably be more important to have large food point foods, such as beef or stews, if you don't mind that they can't stack. Something to give you a lot of the hunger bars down here. Now saturation will still play a part in doing other stuff like breaking blocks and walking, sprinting, all that other stuff will use saturation, but it won't be applied when doing this healing. And that goes into the next point, which is sprinting is no longer affected by the food value. So our food points or your chicken legs there are no longer going to affect how you can sprint. So let's go ahead and lower down how many food points we have. Now we only have 6 food points or 3 little drumsticks, and we can still sprint when before you couldn't sprint like this, but we can actually continue sprinting even if we lose more of them. So I'll give myself some hunger. You can see I'm still able to sprint. So if you're doing a lot of running or anything like that, you don't have to constantly stop and eat food to continue sprinting. This is really good in PvP situations, as a lot of times people enjoy sprinting because it is the fastest way to get away from an enemy and also cover a lot of ground. And sprint jumping is super taxing on your food points, so you don't even have to stop and eat to continue sprinting, which is really nice. But sprinting will take up hunger. Like I said before, hunger will still do it, so you'll still lose hunger from sprinting. So if you're trying to do that naturally regeneration, you obviously kind of have to balance it out. It do take time to eat a little bit. That way you can regen your hearts. They also fix quite a few different bugs to do with block hitting as well as air swinging. That way if the player switches from blocks to a weapon, it doesn't necessarily count that as if he used the weapon. He also went on to say that he made it so that you can now hit players with snowballs. Let's go ahead and give this a try. Got some snowballs here. We got a dispenser here. Put them in there. Notice how they also stack to 64. That was a change from a previous version. Let's go ahead and just... Wow. They do hit the player. They don't do any damage. Similar to other versions where you throw snowballs at most things, they don't do damage. That is cool. I mean, there's no knockback to it. So it's not you can't really use it as a PvP kind of tool to knock your enemy back. Let's put a mob here and see if it knocks him back. No. Okay. And if we throw at him, that does knock him back. So maybe it only matters if the player actually throws it. Let's also try a snow golem. And if I go into survival, let's see. Oh yeah, I'm getting knocked back. Wow. Yeah. Let's try this with another account. Also, if you didn't see on my Twitter, announced that when you do try to play in the newest snapshot, either newest 15 snapshot or the newest combat testing snapshot, that is multiplayer, you will get this warning here that'll say online play is not rated. This is kind of a way for them to kind of inform that people playing a multiplayer, there is no current official rating for that type of play, meaning that the chat's not filtered, and if you have young children, they might be exposed to something that is not age appropriate. So I got my other account on, and what I'm just going to do is pelt me with the snowballs. Oh yeah, it does do knockback. does no damage, but it does push the player backwards. So I guess it could be used for like a PvP instance. If you're trying to put some distance between you and your enemy, you can kind of throw snowballs at them and push them backwards. You can also use them to knock them off certain things. And I know a lot of people think that snowballs used to always do this, but that was only on actually modified servers like Spigot and other things like that, where snowballs in actual vanilla survival never did this. Now eggs is another projectile. Let's go ahead and try that as well. Oh yeah, that is knocking backwards. Yep. So eggs and snowballs knocking backwards. He also reintroduced the upwards knockback. So like when player's up in the air and you hit him in the air, you can kind of knock back them pretty far. He also makes a note that it's probably too strong at the moment and you'll probably balance it out later. You kind of see how high you can knock people. Actually, knock them pretty high. You can probably get them over top of something quite tall just by doing that. So in other versions, there's a cooldown for ender pearls. That determines how fast you can actually spam them. There's also a cooldown for snowballs, but it's not as slow. You can see you can kind of still spam them. You can't do something like outrageous. If it had like a spam clicker, you couldn't like just shoot thousands of snowballs off in 1 second. And now he also added a cooldown for eggs as well. So you throw an egg, notice that there is a little cooldown meter over top of the egg image and it slowly goes down. It looks like it's about the same speed as like snowballs. They also added a bonus controversial edit, he says. They added something called Coyote Time that activates for a fraction of a second if you aim at something, but you're outside of its bounding box. So if you do F3 plus B, there's the bounding boxes. So he's saying if you aim at something, but when you actually go to hit and you're outside the bounding box, it will still allow you to hit that mob. So the reason for this change is that since you can't attack between swings, so if you're trying to spam click, you're trying to hit something that's moving all over the place, it often gives the impression that your input is lost because you might be aiming at it. So you might swing here, but then aim at it and then click again, but the cooldown hasn't went off yet. And then by the time you click again, you might be clicking over here again. And it goes on to say this also made fighting small as well as fast targets like rabbits or baby zombies, I'm guessing like also like ender mites and silverfish, unnecessarily frustrating. Now, I think most people can relate to this. If let's summon in some ender mites, I think they're so small, it's really hard to actually hit them. Especially if you're like hopping around different terrains, you can oftentimes feel like you're not actually hitting these things, even though you're aiming at them. I don't see any problem with this little change that they added. I don't know if I can even notice it. You might notice if you kind of do this like swinging motion and clicking at the same time, you might kind of notice how like I'm still, you know, often getting that swishing noise like I'm actually hitting him, even though if I click over here, you notice there is no swishing noise. So overall, I think this is going to be a good change. As when it comes to like swinging at targets, I really struggle, especially in the middle of a real PvP situation. Overall, I think all these changes are pretty acceptable by having slightly weaker weapons, by removing the regeneration that came from food. That seemed pretty OP when it was first introduced in 1.9, but they still allow us to get some regeneration, and it also gives a bunch of other nice little things on top of it, like being able to sprint without any hunger. Now the other little tweaks that they did as well. But if you guys are from the PvP community, let me know what you guys think about these changes. Do you feel like this will actually want you to play in the newer type of combat rather than playing in like the 1.8, especially with the other changes that they introduced in the previous versions like the shield timings and stuff like that? And Jeb is asking for feedback, so if you guys would like to give feedback on this, I will put down in the description a link to their feedback website. And if you want to come on and try out the snapshot itself, there's also instructions how to do that. Overall, I'm very excited about the changes that they added in these combat snapshots alone, especially one where you can hold down and automatically attack. This allows it so you don't even need an auto clicker to constantly be swinging your weapon. And we are designing farms during our snapshot streams to actually implement this. So if you guys like to join us as we design new type of farms using this automatic attacking, we're also designing a infinitely automatic charge creeper farm using the new dispenser trident mechanisms. Make sure to join our streams. I stream every Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I'll inform you guys of when the streams start via YouTube with your notifications on, also on Twitter and on the ProTech Community Discord. And don't forget to share this video with everyone else that plays Minecraft that you know of so they can be properly informed about these changes before they get implemented into the main version. Hope you guys really enjoyed this video, and I really look forward to designing more cool contraptions and machines using these new type of mechanics. And I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.